Believe it, Florida State is keeping Mike Norvell.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day right here on the nation's #1 podcasting network, Locked On. We're going to be talking about one thing, the impact on Florida State, because Mike Norvell has officially been retained by the Noles for the 2026 season. If you're stunned, you have no idea. As somebody who covers Florida State daily, I cannot put it into perspective, the emotions that I'm feeling. I literally didn't do a live show because I was afraid I would get fired. Yeah, that's how upset I am, but I'm to the point now I'm numb. I let it linger for about 15 minutes before I went over to get on StreamYard and do a podcast. That's how bad this is. But I do want to give credence to what they said. Take it how you will. I'll read some comments from Mr. Collins from the Board of Trustees. He's the chairman, as well as Norvell. And then I'll give a few thoughts and just note I had just literally set up a live show for tonight to begin discussing Florida versus Florida State in the Swamp. I will address more comments tonight at the 9 o'clock Eastern show, but this is just the barometer, the very tip of the iceberg that I'm going to talk about here over the next 5 to 10 minutes. Then I'm going to close it down again, partially in fear for getting myself fired. But here are a couple of the comments that were made in regards to Mike Norvell. Mr. Collins, again, excuse me, is Board of Trustees chairman, and that's about as close to the top of the board as you're going to get in everything that goes on at Florida State. So with that, it's really hard to say these following words out loud, but this is from Mr. Collins. So in addition to addressing the reality that on-field results have been far from acceptable to the Florida State standard, we also realize our responsibilities as stewards of the program's revenues and how to best allocate those dollars to compete at an elite level, something we will not compromise, said Collins. Now, there are a lot of ways to go through that statement and understand it and grasp it. So I'm going to read it again for those of you listening on audio. In addition to addressing the reality that on-field results have been far from acceptable to the Florida State standard, we also realize our responsibilities as stewards of program revenues and how to best allocate those dollars to compete at an elite level, something we will not compromise, said Collins. Here's my take. We're in a massive hole because of Norvell's contract. And for the record, I do not blame Florida State for giving Norvell that contract. That's kind of the standard after you have a breakthrough season with a head coach. Every school does it in basketball and football, and oftentimes Olympic sports as well, or, it could be golf, it could be baseball, it could be anything. That being the case, they're handcuffed. Okay, I get it. I have said over and over on this show, I understand the financial ramifications, and Mr. Collins is directly speaking to it. I give him credit, and FSU in general, by the way, for even talking about this because it's awkward. It's a nice way of saying we would have fired Mike if we had the money, if his contract was a buyout of $20 million instead of $50+ million. We all know it. Having said that, there is one failure here, and it's a very big one. Your job as quote unquote stewards, that's a very good word, of the program is to make sure that no matter how it comes about, that the financial resources come together and that you get the people in and out of the program that are necessary. You failed. You did not convince the boosters to pay out the buyout, or you didn't think that was the best option. Either way, you failed. There's no shortcut. Under no circumstance can Mike Norvell be the head coach, and then you also say that we want the best results for Florida State. That is a faulty statement on any level. Everybody knows it, and it's a joke. So while you started down the right path, admitting that the financial aspects, we know what you're hinting at. Appreciate that. That's great. You're going to reallocate funds to NIL. Okay. That's what Florida just did. By the way, it's ironic you guys play the Gators in Gainesville this week. How did that work out with Billy Napier and the Gators this year? You know, the team that last night was down 28-0, and I turned the channel on their home field to a team they hadn't lost to since 2003. How did that go for the Florida Gators this year? And by the way, that's the same team that even before you announced this, that I'm going to tell you, I'm picking the Gators to beat Florida State because I don't trust Mike Norvell in any way, shape, or form. And this team hasn't won a road game since, you guessed it, Florida hosted Florida State 2 years ago. This is a terrible decision long term for the football program, for Florida State's boosters, their former players, former coaches, in the name of Bobby Bowden, etc. Mike Norvell is not the correct answer. I'm sure, by all accounts, that Mike Norvell is a good man. I've heard nothing but that across the board. He is nowhere near the standard for Florida State to win today, tomorrow, or anytime in a quote-unquote long-term success, stewards of the program, any fun terms that you want to use that are cliche. He is the epitome of you guys making sure your dollars and cents match and nothing more. It's one thing to say that you've got to make sure that you won't compromise on the finances. It's another to throw your fans under the bus. It's another to throw your boosters under the bus. It's another for guys like me, and Ward only knows I feel terrible for the Florida State community that covers the Noles on a daily basis. Like right before I went to this show, by accident, I saw that War Chant was going live with this news. I don't even want to go in there. I can imagine Ira and those guys, how angry they're going to be. But at the same time, it's embarrassing. You couldn't figure out a way to get rid of the coach, and that is quite honestly your job. So Florida State has failed. Now, to wrap up the show, what does that mean for the next year, year and a half? I can give you insights directly, which I'll start with, but I'll also speculate a little bit. The insights directly are related to recruiting. I work in the recruiting world. I work in 7-on-7, covering it. I'm now going into the realm of being a part of a 7-on-7 program. And one thing is fact, recruiting will be an absolute sieve. Here's why. Regardless of who Florida State signs, are they going to get players committed to Florida State or committed to NIL? The 2024 season taught us many things about how the portal can absolutely haunt you. But as Bud Elliott, lifelong Nole fan, Nole grad, friend of mine said recently on the Cover 3 podcast, they're losing about 70% of their production after this season. Good luck is basically what he was saying. They're going to have to spend a ton of money just to get to mediocre next year. He's right about that, wholeheartedly. And then what are you going to do with the recruiting money? Because it still comes out of the same coffers. You're building long-term, remember, year-to-year success. You can't do both if you're bringing back Norvell. If you bring in a new coach, you can sell, okay, year one is whatever it is. That's not going to work with a coach that's hanging on by a thread. You're going to have to dump cash into the portal again, screwing over the younger guys. 100%. There's no shortcut on that. You can say whatever you want at these press conferences. I will dump all over that. I'm telling everybody at FSU, coaches included, don't even think about it. I will hammer it. Fail. You are dumping all over those kids because you're trying to save your jobs because you all failed this year. Period. To that end, you're also going to lose a lot of recruits from the 27 and 28 classes because they know Norvell is close to finished. Further hindering the program long term. Now, what part of a steward are any of you in this? This year's fiscal budget? Okay. What do you think it's going to be long term when the coffers don't include a lot of boosters that have no interest, none, in what you're doing? That's not going to go well. And when you need money for the next coach, and it's still coming at some point, you're just kicking the can down the road. How is that going to go? Probably not going to be a great candidate list next year either. That's the only thing I'll give you. The name that fits Florida State, that's a big name, that's got a connection, that's got a lot of experience, all the things you need to get the fan base excited doesn't exist. And it's not going to exist next year either. It's not. To that end, you better figure out something because you're just going down a slow hill to the bottom, and it's still full of Gators. And I'm not talking about the ones you're going to see in Gainesville. I'm talking about the ones that are fans. They're going to eat you up. If you want to see sales go down, continue down this path. Keep him again. Keep him for 27. Why not? This is a mediocre coach. That's it. Nice guys. Great. And several of the members of the assistant staff are good coaches, but under him, they're not as good. It's got to be a new guy at the top. There is no shortcut. So Florida State's going to lose on recruits because they're going to have to spend too much in the portal. And on top of it, they're going to lose on recruits beyond this next year too. Not sure how this signing day will go. You got me on that one, but it's probably not as good as it should be. Bottom line, Florida State is failing with Mike Norvell as its head coach. And to be honest with you, I have no idea how you get yourself out of this hole at the end of next year because we're going to be right back to square one. He'll go 7-5. If he's lucky, 8-4. Florida State fans, regardless, are going to be ready for him to be gone. Kicking the can down the road here. It's truly, truly sad. So with that, thank you for those that are loyal to Locked On Seminoles and loyal Florida State fans. We're going to have an interesting offseason. I'm going to take a different approach than I did this past season, but no way around it. Keeping Mike Norvell was the wrong decision. We will see you on the live show tonight to discuss Florida State, and I'm going to give some more candid thoughts on the Mike Norvell situation. That's at 9 o'clock Eastern time.